Zyra's eyes widened as she stepped off the sleek, silver shuttle onto Earth's soil. She had always dreamed of visiting this planet, but never in her wildest imagination had she pictured herself here, standing amidst a futuristic university filled with students from all over the galaxy. This was the Terra Institute of Intergalactic Studies, a place where beings from different planets could learn about Earth's unique culture, history, and most importantly, its advancements in technology. It was an opportunity for Zyra to get a glimpse of the human race, to see firsthand the people she had only heard about in distant stories. As a member of the Valyrian species, Zyra came from a peaceful planet where violence was almost non-existent. Her people thrived on knowledge, diplomacy, and mutual respect. In fact, the Valyrians prided themselves on their ability to solve conflicts without ever raising a weapon. The idea of engaging in warfare was foreign to them. The Valyrian people found no need for bloodshed, and for Zyra, the concept of war seemed like an archaic relic of a bygone era. But Earth was different. Zyra had heard the rumors, the stories passed on from her elders. Humans were known for their intensity. There were whispers of their past conflicts, how they fought to survive, how they overcame enemies much stronger than themselves. Despite the peace she had grown up with, Zyra felt a strange mixture of curiosity and caution. She was eager to learn more about these fascinating creatures, yet a part of her feared what she might discover. As she walked into the main auditorium with the other alien students, a quiet hum filled the air. The room was enormous, its walls lined with screens displaying intricate holograms of Earth's history. Zyra took a seat at the front, eager to begin the lesson. Today, they would be learning about Earth's violent past, how its inhabitants had fought wars, struggled for dominance, and survived through countless battles. The lights dimmed, and the holographic projectors came to life. The professor, a tall human with a calm demeanor, spoke into the microphone, his voice resonating in the vast room. Today, you will witness the true nature of humanity. This is Earth's past, a past defined by conflict. Watch closely, for this is what shaped the humans you see today. The room fell silent as the hologram shifted to display a grim image. Zyra's eyes widened. The scene that unfolded before her was shocking. Earth during its World War I era. She watched in horror as countless soldiers engaged in brutal hand-to-hand combat, as bombs rained down on cities, and as entire civilizations were torn apart by violence. The bloodshed was unimaginable. Humans, dressed in tattered uniforms, fought for survival, their faces grim and determined. Zyra couldn't believe what she was seeing. The peaceful, advanced humans she had heard about seemed to be nowhere in sight. In their place were beings consumed by war, their every action driven by the need to conquer or defend. Zyra's heart raced as she felt a sense of unease. How could a species so intelligent, so advanced, engage in such barbaric acts? She shifted uncomfortably in her seat, trying to process what she was witnessing. Was this really the same species she had come to learn about? How could a peaceful race like the Valyrians ever understand such violence? As the hologram moved on to more recent history, Zyra's discomfort deepened. The simulation shifted to a modern-day conflict, this time showcasing the latest technology humanity had developed: cloaking devices, drones, and AI-powered robots. The hologram displayed humans using these advancements in a war that seemed all too familiar. Earth's fight against an AI-controlled army, a battle for survival against machines that threatened to destroy everything. Zyra could hardly breathe as the visual scene unfolded in front of her. She saw a cloaked human warship descend into enemy territory, silently evading detection as it launched a powerful strike. The drones, each equipped with energy weapons, buzzed through the air, taking down enemy soldiers with pinpoint accuracy. The robots, humanoid in design, fought alongside humans, their actions swift and ruthless. The entire scene was jaw-dropping. Zyra's mind struggled to comprehend the magnitude of what she was seeing. The humans, despite their advanced technology, seemed to thrive on destruction. It was as if they couldn't escape the violence embedded in their very nature. For the first time, Zyra felt a chill run down her spine. This was not the peaceful, cooperative species she had imagined. Earth's history was full of destruction, bloodshed, and death. She couldn't understand it. How could such intelligent beings partake in such brutality? At that moment, the quiet of the auditorium was broken by the voice of one of the alien students. Talon, a young male from the peaceful Keldar race, raised his hand, his face contorted in disbelief. How could beings so advanced partake in such destruction? He asked, his voice filled with both confusion and disgust. Why would a species like this engage in such violence, even with all their technology? The professor, unfazed by Talon's question, simply replied, "The answer lies in their survival instinct. Humanity, despite their intelligence, has always been driven by the need to survive. Their wars were not fought for conquest or glory. They fought to live." But the words did little to ease Zyra's growing unease. She had heard of survival before, but never in the context of such devastation. As the hologram shifted again, Zyra couldn't help but wonder, are humans more dangerous than we thought? The question gnawed at her. How could a species that valued peace and knowledge also harbor such a thirst for destruction? The professor continued, showing more images of humanity's battles with other alien races, wars that had shaken the galaxy to its core. In the face of an existential threat, the professor explained, humans will do whatever it takes to protect their home, their loved ones, and their future. The holograms painted a picture of a species that would never back down, no matter the odds. As the simulation ended and the lights returned to normal, Zyra sat back in her seat, her mind racing. She couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled deep within her. She had come to Earth with curiosity, ready to learn about its people. But now she felt conflicted. The violence she had witnessed was unlike anything she had ever imagined. Was this what made humans so resilient? Was their strength rooted in their bloodthirst, in their willingness to fight, to destroy? Zyra's heart thudded in her chest as the thoughts swirled in her mind. She had come to Earth expecting to find a species that valued peace, cooperation, and mutual understanding. But instead, she had seen a race that was defined by war, survival, and the willingness to sacrifice anything for victory. She couldn't help but ask herself, how do humans reconcile such violence with their peaceful moments? Was there more to them than what she had seen? Were there redeeming qualities beneath their bloodthirst? The answers seemed elusive, but one thing was certain. Her journey to understand the humans had only just begun. The uncertainty that filled Zyra's thoughts set the stage for everything that would follow. Earth wasn't the utopia she had imagined. It was a planet torn by the scars of war, where survival was the ultimate goal. And as Zyra looked around at her fellow alien students, she realized that the question of humanity's true nature was far more complicated than she had ever anticipated. The following day, the alien students gathered once again in the high-tech auditorium, where their instructor had promised a hands-on experience to better understand humanity's nature. Zyra, still grappling with the shocking violence she had witnessed during the history lesson, was curious about this new simulation. How could something more real than what they had already seen be possible? If humanity's past was any indication, it was likely to be far more intense than anything she had imagined. The aliens were about to face a new kind of challenge, a test designed to push them to their limits. The simulation they were about to enter was set in a futuristic urban landscape, one that closely resembled the busy metropolises of Earth's modern cities. The entire environment was designed to replicate one of Earth's most intense battles, a combat zone where humans fought for survival against powerful, technologically advanced foes. In the simulation, the alien students would face off against virtual human soldiers, each equipped with cloaking devices, energy shields, and advanced weaponry. The simulation's goal was to help the alien students experience firsthand the brutality and efficiency of human combat strategies. Zyra felt a knot form in her stomach as she watched the simulation setup unfold. She was about to face something far more dangerous than she had ever encountered. Despite her species' natural agility and intellect, she had never been in a situation where life and death were so intimately tied. As the students were split into teams, Zyra was paired with Talon, the Keldar student who had voiced his confusion over humanity's violent history the day before. The two of them exchanged tense glances before stepping into the simulation pod. Both were well trained in their species' combat techniques, but this would be unlike anything they had ever experienced before. The simulation began with a loud mechanical hum. The world around Zyra and Talon shifted instantly, and they found themselves standing in the middle of a busy city street. Towering skyscrapers loomed overhead, casting long shadows over the streets below. The air was thick with tension as a distant siren wailed, signaling the beginning of the conflict. From the corner of her eye, Zyra saw human soldiers, virtual, of course, hidden in the shadows, their cloaking devices making them almost invisible. The atmosphere was thick with danger. The alien students knew that at any moment they could be ambushed. As Zyra and Talon cautiously advanced through the city, the simulation came alive with movement. Without warning, the first shot rang out. A bullet flew past Zyra's head, narrowly missing her. She instinctively ducked behind a nearby building, pulling Talon down with her. They were under attack, and the human soldiers were already using their technology to their advantage. Talon's voice was a strained whisper in Zyra's ear. "We need to work together. These humans aren't like the ones in the history lessons. They're trained, organized, and deadly." Zyra nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the tension building. The simulation had already escalated faster than she could have anticipated. As she and Talon moved through the city, they encountered more human soldiers, some cloaked, others equipped with energy shields that deflected their attacks. The air was alive with the hum of high-tech weapons, and the sound of distant explosions made her heart race. The two aliens were forced to adapt quickly. They dodged bullets, sprinted from cover to cover, and fired back with their own weapons, though their energy beams barely scratched the shields of their opponents. Their every move was calculated, and every decision felt like it could be their last. Talon, who was usually calm and collected, was showing signs of strain. It was clear that the relentless assault from the human soldiers was pushing him to his limits. The true nature of humanity began to take shape as Zyra realized that the human soldiers weren't acting out of blind bloodlust. They weren't just fighting to fight. Their actions were coordinated, each soldier working in perfect harmony with the others. Every move was planned, and every shot was taken with precision. They didn't attack out of rage. They attacked to survive, to defend what was theirs. Zyra was beginning to understand. The humans' aggression wasn't mindless or uncontrolled. It was a calculated response to their environment, an instinct driven by the need to protect themselves and their way of life. Their thirst for blood wasn't a thirst for destruction, but a thirst for survival. She couldn't help but feel a deep sense of admiration for the way humans approached combat. Cold, precise, and relentless. Just as Zyra was beginning to grasp the gravity of the situation, a new challenge arose. A group of advanced robotic soldiers, humanoid machines with razor-sharp limbs and advanced weaponry, entered the simulation. They moved with terrifying speed and efficiency, easily outmatching the alien students. The robots were faster, stronger, and more durable than any human soldier, and they quickly forced Zyra and Talon into a corner. It was in this moment of crisis that Zyra realized the true meaning of teamwork. As the robots advanced, Talon fought with all his might, using his agility to dodge their attacks. Zyra, too, fought fiercely, her training kicking in as she attempted to outmaneuver the mechanical soldiers. Together, they managed to disable one of the robots, but the others were closing in fast. The intensity of the combat was unlike anything Zyra had ever experienced. She could hear the heavy thump of her own heartbeat, the roar of energy blasts as they filled the air. The robots were relentless, their weapons firing with deadly accuracy. But as the simulation continued, Zyra and Talon began to feel the weight of their struggle. They couldn't keep up with the robots forever. It was at this critical moment that another alien student, Bonner, leaped into the fray. Bonner was known for his bravery, but his willingness to sacrifice himself for others was something that only a few of the students could truly understand. Bonner charged at one of the robots, using his energy shield to protect his teammates. He drew the attention of the machine, giving Zyra and Talon the opportunity to regroup and strike back. But the cost was steep. Bonner was struck by a deadly blow, his energy shield failing in the face of the robot's overwhelming power. Zyra watched in horror as Bonner crumpled to the ground, his body lifeless. The simulation abruptly paused, and the bright lights of the auditorium flickered back to life. A deep silence filled the room. Zyra's chest tightened as she felt the weight of the loss. Bonner, who had been so full of life just moments ago, was gone. His sacrifice had not been in vain, but it left an indelible mark on her heart. As the simulation ended and the alien students slowly gathered their thoughts, Zyra couldn't shake the image of Bonner's brave face. He had died protecting his friends, showing a courage that was beyond anything she had ever witnessed. Zyra's understanding of humanity had shifted. It wasn't just about survival. It was about loyalty, teamwork, and sacrifice. Humanity's bloodthirst, as she had once believed it to be, was not an inherent evil. It was a drive to protect what mattered most, even if it meant laying down one's life for others. Zyra felt a deep sense of respect for this strange, violent, yet compassionate species. As she and Talon left the simulation room, they shared a quiet moment. Zyra looked up at the sky, reflecting on the harsh truth she had uncovered. Humans were a force to be reckoned with, yes, but they were also driven by something greater than violence. They fought not for conquest, but for the ones they loved, for the survival of their people. She could never fully understand them. But in that moment, Zyra knew that her journey into the heart of humanity had only just begun. The alien students were now witnessing something far more intense than any simulation. They stood on an orbital station, floating high above the Earth, their eyes fixed on a live-action battlefield below. The scene unfolding before them was a testament to human resilience, courage, and unyielding determination. It was as if the very soul of humanity was on display. Zyra felt a surge of awe and fascination as she watched Earth's forces respond to a massive invasion. The enemy fleet, a monstrous collection of A-driven warships, loomed like a dark cloud over Earth's atmosphere. It was a technological juggernaut, a force unlike anything Zyra had ever seen. The aliens from peaceful and technologically advanced species were observing the Earth's counterattack in real time, all from the safety of their orbital station. But the humans had no such luxury. They were facing certain doom, yet they fought with a determination that left Zyra breathless. What caught Zyra's attention the most was Earth's star destroyers, massive warships that cut through the void of space like a hot knife through butter. They were cloaked, rendered nearly invisible to the naked eye, and armed to the teeth with weaponry that made the alien students' technologies look primitive in comparison. The star destroyers moved with precision, systematically dismantling the invading fleet. The display was nothing short of a masterclass in warfare, and Zyra couldn't take her eyes off it. She had seen humans fight in simulations, but this was real. This was the raw power of Earth, unleashed in a battle for survival. The enemy, composed of advanced AI warships, was formidable, but humanity wasn't backing down. Instead, they were pushing back, taking the fight to the invaders in ways no one, not even the alien students, could have anticipated. Zyra had never seen anything like it. As she watched the battle unfold, she couldn't help but feel a deep sense of respect for humanity's resilience. How could a species so seemingly violent in its history face such a dire threat with unwavering resolve? Zyra's mind swirled with questions, but there was one person who might be able to answer them. Jake, a human student who had been part of the educational exchange program. He had been quiet during the previous simulations, but there was a strength to him that intrigued Zaira. Later that evening, after the simulation had ended and the students had gathered in the observation deck of the orbital station, Zaira found herself standing next to Jake. He was watching the battle from the large viewing window, his face illuminated by the flickering lights of the ongoing conflict. Zaira hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to start the conversation, but her curiosity won over. "What is it about Earth that makes you so resilient, even when faced with certain doom?" Zaira asked, her voice soft, but filled with genuine curiosity. Jake turned to her, his expression somber but resolute. For a moment, Zaira thought he might not answer her question, but then he spoke, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had seen the worst humanity had to offer. "We've been through hell before," Jake began, his eyes fixed on the distant battle. "Every time we're knocked down, we get back up. Earth has faced extinction more times than you can imagine, but we never give up. Bloodthirst, it's not what you think. It's survival. But when we fight to win. Not for fun, not for glory. We fight because if we don't, we won't be here to fight the next day." Zaira was taken aback by the raw honesty in Jake's words. She had expected him to say something about humanity's thirst for conquest or power, but instead he had spoken of survival, of the need to protect their home, their people. It was a truth that shook her to her core. She had always viewed humans through the lens of their violent history, but now she was beginning to see that violence in a different light. It wasn't about cruelty. It was about staying alive, about protecting those who mattered most. Jake's words echoed in Zaira's mind as she watched the battle unfold. The humans weren't fighting for dominance or control. They were fighting for the survival of their species. The stakes were unimaginably high, and every action, every decision made in that battlefield was one that could tip the scales between life and death. It was a harsh reality, but one that had shaped the very nature of humanity. As Zaira looked at Jake, she saw a different side of him. He wasn't just another student in the program. He was a reflection of humanity itself, strong, resilient, and unwavering in the face of adversity. She found herself drawn to him in a way she hadn't anticipated. There was a bond forming between them, built on mutual understanding and respect. But the tension of the situation didn't allow for any time to dwell on these emotions. The live-action battle continued to unfold before them, and the situation on the ground was rapidly becoming more dire. Earth's forces, though resilient, were facing an overwhelming onslaught from the A-driven invaders. The Star Destroyers had broken through the enemy fleet, but the battle was far from won. The alien students could see the desperation on the faces of the human soldiers below, the same soldiers who had fought so fiercely in the simulations. Suddenly, the viewing window flickered, and a hidden message appeared. It was a broadcast from Earth's leaders, transmitted directly to the orbital station. The message was short, but its content sent a chill down Zaira's spine. "Prepare for the invasion. Do not underestimate humanity's response. We will not back down." The words were clear, and they carried a sense of finality. Earth's leaders were preparing for the worst, but they were not afraid. They knew what was at stake, and they would do whatever it took to protect their world. Zaira's mind raced as she absorbed the message. This wasn't just about a single battle. This was the beginning of a war, one that could determine the fate of an entire species. And humanity had already made its stance clear. They would fight, no matter the cost. Jake stood silently next to Zaira, his face unreadable as he processed the message. Zaira could sense the weight of the situation on his shoulders. She had never seen him like this before, so serious, so focused. For the first time, she realized just how much humanity had endured, how much they had fought for their survival. It wasn't just a fight for their own species, it was a fight for everything they held dear. Zaira looked out at the vast expanse of space, the stars shining brightly in the distance. She had come to Earth to learn, but now she was learning something far more profound than she had expected. Humans were not just survivors. They were warriors, bound by a code of resilience and sacrifice that set them apart from every other species. Zyra felt a deep sense of respect for them, and for the first time, she realized that she was witnessing a turning point in humanity's history, a turning point that would shape not just their future, but the future of every species they encountered. As the battle raged on below, Zyra turned to Jake, her voice steady but filled with resolve. "I understand now. You fight not because you want to, but because you have to. And when you fight, you do it together. That's what makes you strong." Jake gave her a small, tired smile. "That's right. Together, we rise. And we won't back down." The tension in the air was palpable as the students continued to watch the ongoing battle. Zyra knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but she also knew that humanity would not back down. No matter what came next, Earth's warriors would fight until the very end. The peaceful academic environment of the campus was shattered in an instant. What had once been a safe place for learning and cultural exchange turned into a battlefield as an eye-controlled drone army suddenly breached the campus security. The alien students, along with their human counterparts, found themselves under attack. There was no time to think, only time to act. Zyra, still trying to process everything she had learned about humanity, grabbed her gear and followed Jake, who was already moving to defend the campus. Her heart was pounding, but her thoughts were clear. She had seen humans fight in simulations, but this was different. The real thing. There were no controlled environments here. The drones attacking were relentless, programmed with one goal in mind: destruction. Jake looked at Zyra, his expression determined but calm. "Stay close," he ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "We fight together." Zyra nodded, her nerves steeled. They had no choice but to work together. They were both on the same side now, and survival depended on their ability to protect one another. The drones, sleek and black with glowing red eyes, moved quickly across the campus. They were heavily armed, equipped with advanced weaponry that rivaled anything the aliens had seen before. Their energy beams lit up the sky, cutting through the air and striking anything in their path. Zyra could feel the heat of the blasts even from a distance, and she knew they had to act fast. Jake pulled out a futuristic rifle and handed it to Zyra. "Use this," he said, his eyes scanning the battlefield. "It'll help even the odds." Zyra took the weapon, feeling the weight of it in her hands. The rifle was far more advanced than anything she had ever used, yet there was something reassuring about its sleek design. As she aimed the rifle and fired her first shot, the energy beam shot out, hitting a drone square in its core and sending it spiraling to the ground. Zyra's heart raced, not from fear, but from the thrill of the fight. She had never experienced anything like this before. Beside her, Jake was a force to be reckoned with. He moved with precision, using the rifle to take down drones with deadly accuracy. But it wasn't just the rifle he was using. He was also skilled in hand-to-hand combat, his movements fluid and controlled as he engaged with the enemy at close range. Zyra had never seen anyone fight like Jake. It was as if he had an instinct for battle, an understanding of the fight that went beyond training. But it wasn't just Jake. The alien students, too, were holding their own. Zyra saw Talon, the Valyrian who had questioned humanity's violence, using his advanced technology to disable drones with precision. His eyes were wide with shock and awe at the brutality of the battle, but there was no hesitation in his movements. They were all in this together now, forced to defend their lives and each other. The campus was a war zone. The drones continued to pour in, seemingly endless. They were equipped with energy shields that made them difficult to take down, and their numbers only increased as time passed. But the humans and aliens fought on, determined to protect the people and the place they had come to love. Amid the chaos, Zyra found herself fighting beside Jake, their movements becoming synchronized as they moved through the battlefield. She was beginning to understand what it meant to fight with someone, to rely on them for your survival. It wasn't just about the weapons. They were working as a team, using their knowledge of tactics, technology, and sheer will to survive. But the battle wasn't without loss. As the fight raged on, Zyra heard a scream, one that sent a cold shiver down her spine. It was Bonner's younger sister, a fellow alien student who had been fighting nearby. Zyra turned to see the young alien girl lying on the ground, her body lifeless, a gaping wound in her chest. She had been caught in the crossfire during the attack. The sight of Bonner's sister's death hit Zyra hard. She felt a deep sadness, a sense of loss that went beyond words. The sacrifice made by one of her own kind, an innocent life taken too soon. It was a pain she could not ignore. But what was even more profound was the look on Bonner's face when he saw his sister's body. His grief was overwhelming, but there was also a quiet understanding in his eyes. This was war. This was the cost of survival. Zyra looked at Jake, who had been fighting by her side, and saw that the same pain reflected in his eyes. He had lost people before, she could tell. His face was stoic, but the weight of the battle was clear. Zyra realized that humanity's fight wasn't just about survival. It was about loss, sacrifice, and the will to keep going, no matter what. The truth hit her like a wave. Humanity wasn't bloodthirsty for the sake of bloodthirst. It was about survival, about protecting what mattered most. Their violence wasn't senseless destruction. It was driven by a deep instinct to survive, to protect their loved ones, and to never back down, no matter how dire the situation became. This was the essence of humanity, a species that fought not out of joy, but out of necessity. The realization left Zyra shaken to her core. She had always seen humans as violent, driven by a need for conquest and domination. But now she saw the truth. Every battle, every conflict they had fought was a result of being pushed to the brink. Humanity fought because they had no other choice. They fought because if they didn't, they would cease to exist. Zyra's internal struggle intensified. She had come to Earth with preconceived notions, thinking of humans as barbarians, unable to control their aggression. But what she saw now was a species that had learned to fight with purpose. They didn't revel in violence. They endured it, fought it, and moved forward. Zyra's respect for them grew with each passing moment. As the battle continued, Zyra found herself more and more in awe of humanity's strength. She saw the determination in Jake's eyes as he fought, the grief in Bonner's face as he mourned his sister, and the unity between humans and aliens as they stood side by side, protecting each other. It was a lesson that would stay with her forever. When the fight finally ended, the campus was left in ruins, but the surviving students were victorious. They had made it through the attack, but at what cost? Zyra knew that the war was far from over, but she also knew that humanity would continue to fight. They would continue to rise, no matter what. As the dust settled, Zyra turned to Jake, her heart heavy with the weight of everything she had learned. "I understand now," she said softly. "You fight because you have to. You fight for your survival, for the people you love. And even in the face of death, you never back down." Jake looked at her, his face weary but resolute. "That's right. And we'll keep fighting, because that's what we do." Zyra nodded, her respect for humanity deeper than ever before. She had come to Earth to learn, but what she had learned was far more profound than she could have ever imagined. Humanity's bloodthirst was not a sign of savagery. It was a reflection of their will to survive. And that was something Zyra would never forget. The battlefield was a chaotic mess of destruction, noise, and desperation. The alien students, now fully equipped in combat gear, stood shoulder to shoulder with Earth's soldiers as they prepared for the final battle. The AI-driven army had already devastated countless cities and killed millions, but now the last stand had come. It was do or die for humanity. Zyra, still reeling from everything she had learned about humans, was about to witness the most intense fight of her life. The mission was clear: take down the AI command center that controlled the drones, the robotic soldiers, and the entire invasion force. To accomplish this, Earth's forces would execute a massive orbital bombardment, targeting the heart of the enemy's operations. But that was just one part of the strategy. On the ground, human and alien soldiers would have to work together to fend off the relentless AI army and buy enough time for the bombardment to succeed. The alien students were in full combat mode, their weapons upgraded with Earth technology, prepared for a battle that would determine the fate of both Earth and their own species. Zyra stood beside Jake, her heart racing. She could feel the weight of the mission, the pressure of the situation, but there was something else in her chest too. Something new, something deeper. It was a bond, a sense of camaraderie that had grown between her and the humans during their time together. Zyra was no longer a mere observer. She was a fighter, and she was ready. The battle began with a deafening roar. The AI forces, a relentless tide of robotic drones, moved toward the Earth forces with speed and precision. Their numbers seemed endless, and yet the humans stood firm, a wall of determination against the invaders. Zyra fired her weapon, a sleek energy rifle that she had become proficient with, her shots cutting down drones with deadly accuracy. She moved with the same instinct that Jake had shown her, her actions fluid and precise, working in tandem with the humans around her. From the sky, the Star Destroyers began their orbital bombardment, their massive guns unleashing destruction upon the AI command center. The blasts were blinding, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. Zyra watched in awe as the explosions lit up the sky, but the battle was far from over. On the ground, the fight raged on, and the humans were pushed to their limits. Despite their bravery and skill, the humans were outnumbered, and their equipment was no match for the advanced technology of the AI. The drones were faster, stronger, and better equipped, but the humans had something the AI didn't: strategy, creativity, and an unbreakable will to fight. Zyra couldn't help but be impressed. She had seen this before, but now it was more real than ever. The humans were fighting for their lives, not just for survival, but for everything they held dear. As the battle raged on, Zyra found herself fighting beside Jake, who had become her closest ally in the chaos. Together, they pushed forward, cutting down drones and providing cover for the soldiers around them. But it wasn't just the fight that held Zyra's attention. It was Jake, his determination, his strength, and his ability to lead by example. He was everything she had come to admire about humanity: resourceful, courageous, and selfless. In the midst of the battle, Zyra caught sight of the enemy's commander, a massive AI-controlled war machine, towering over the battlefield. It was directing the drones, coordinating the attack, and ensuring the invasion's success. This was the key target, the one thing that had to be taken down in order to end the war. But the commander was surrounded by an army of robotic soldiers, and getting to it would be nearly impossible. Jake turned to Zyra, his expression serious. "We need to take it out now." Zyra nodded, her heart pounding. She knew what they had to do. It was a suicide mission. But they didn't have a choice. They couldn't let the AI win. Together, they charged forward, cutting through the enemy's defenses, their weapons blazing. The fight was brutal. They were outnumbered, but they fought with a ferocity that could not be matched. As they neared the AI commander, the world seemed to slow down. Zyra's pulse was racing, and every step felt like an eternity. The closer they got to the commander, the more desperate the fight became. Then, in a moment of sheer courage, Jake made a decision that would change everything. He turned to Zyra, his face full of resolve. "Stay back," he said, his voice calm despite the chaos. "I'll handle this." Zyra opened her mouth to protest, but Jake was already moving, charging directly at the commander. The distance between them closed rapidly, and Zyra could do nothing but watch as Jake fought with everything he had. The AI commander was massive, its metallic body bristling with weapons, but Jake was quick, his movements precise. He ducked and weaved, dodging incoming fire as he closed the gap. Zyra watched, helpless, as Jake engaged the commander in a brutal close-quarters fight. It was clear that the odds were stacked against him, but he wasn't backing down. He was fighting not for glory, but for the survival of his world, for his people, and for the ones he loved. The fight was intense, and Zara could see the determination in Jake's eyes as he fought with everything he had. But then, in an unexpected moment, Jake's body was hit by a devastating blow from the commander's massive arm. Zara gasped, her heart sinking as she saw Jake fall to the ground, blood pouring from the wound. He was hurt, badly. Without thinking, Zara sprinted forward, firing her weapon to provide cover for Jake. But it was too late. The AI commander was already preparing to strike again, its mechanical fists raised for the final blow. In a desperate move, Zara threw herself at the commander, using all her strength to pull it off course. She managed to disrupt its attack, but it was clear that the damage had already been done. Jake was unconscious, lying in a pool of his own blood. Zara could feel her heart breaking as she tried to pull him to safety, but the fight was far from over. The battle continued to rage around them, and Zara realized that humanity's resilience was more than just a matter of survival. It was about sacrifice, about giving everything for the ones you love, for the greater good. Jake had sacrificed himself to protect her, to protect their world, and it was a sacrifice that Zara would never forget. As the fight finally ended and the last of the AI drones were destroyed, the surviving humans and aliens stood together, battered but victorious. The orbital bombardment had taken down the AI command center, and the invasion was over. But for Zara, the victory felt hollow. She looked at Jake, who was now being treated for his wounds, and realized that humanity's bloodthirst wasn't about violence or destruction. It was about love, loyalty, and the need to protect. The battle was won, but the true lesson had only just begun. Zara had come to Earth with preconceived notions about humanity, but now she understood. The humans weren't bloodthirsty. They were fighters, driven by a fierce need to survive and protect those they cared about. And that was something she could never unlearn. As she looked around at the survivors, she knew that this was only the beginning. The human spirit, the will to survive, was stronger than any machine. And with that knowledge, Zara stood taller than she ever had before, ready to fight for a future where humanity and the alien species could live side by side, united in their shared strength. This was humanity's last stand, and they had won. The sun had set over the ruined city, casting long shadows over the broken buildings that once stood proud. Now, the world lay in ruins, a testament to the fierce battle that had taken place. Zara stood at the edge of what was left of the city, looking out at the horizon. The wind was silent, carrying with it the scent of destruction and the faint hope of rebirth. Her thoughts were as heavy as the silence around her. The war was over. Earth had won, but the lesson she had learned would stay with her forever. She had come to Earth with a simple understanding of humanity. They were savage, bloodthirsty creatures, always fighting, always at war. But everything she had witnessed over the past few weeks had shattered that perception. She had seen humans in their darkest moments, fighting against a superior force, but she had also seen their light. She had seen their determination to protect, to survive, and above all, to care for each other. Zara had learned that humanity's bloodthirst was not born from a desire for destruction or violence, but from a need to protect. She had watched Jake, a human student, fight to his last breath to save not only her but everyone around him. She had seen soldiers risk their lives for people they had never met, and had learned that their loyalty was as strong as any alien technology or weapon. The alien students had been taught that the human race was one to be feared, a species constantly on the edge of violence and chaos. But the truth was far more complex than they had imagined. The humans fought because they had no other choice, because they had been pushed to the brink time and time again. And each time they had fallen, they had risen again, stronger and more determined to survive. Zara was no longer the same. She was changed, her beliefs forever altered by what she had experienced. The humans weren't the mindless killers they had been painted as. They were survivors. They fought because they loved. They fought because they had to, because every battle was a reminder of how fragile life could be and how precious it was. As she sat down to write her final report, Zyra struggled to put her thoughts into words. How could she explain what she had learned? How could she capture the complexity of the human spirit, a spirit that was both fierce and kind, savage and loving, destructive and creative? It was a paradox, a contradiction, and yet it was humanity's greatest strength. She began to write. We came to Earth thinking they were savage, bloodthirsty creatures, but we left understanding that they fight because they care, for each other, for their future, and for the ones they love. Their violence is not an end in itself, it is a means to an end. They fight not because they enjoy killing, but because they must. They fight for survival, for their families, and for the future of their world. And when they are pushed to the brink, they do not break. They rise. They endure. They fight not for dominance, but for the hope of peace. Zyra paused, reading over her words. The report wasn't just about the war. It was about the people she had come to know, the humans she had come to respect. She had seen their capacity for violence, yes, but she had also seen their capacity for compassion, for sacrifice, for loyalty. The bloodthirst she had once feared was not an inherent trait of their species. It was a survival mechanism, born from their need to protect those they loved. And in that, Zyra had learned the true meaning of strength. After submitting her report, Zyra took one last walk through the ruined city. The streets were lined with rubble, buildings torn apart by the fierce battle that had raged for days. But in the midst of the destruction, she saw something that filled her with hope. Humans, battered and bruised, were already at work rebuilding. They didn't stop to mourn. They didn't pause to rest. They moved forward, driven by the belief that tomorrow would be better, that they could rebuild from the ashes of the past. Zyra watched as groups of humans worked together, lifting debris, helping each other, sharing smiles and laughter despite the destruction around them. It was a sight she never thought she would see. The same humans she had once thought of as ruthless, bloodthirsty warriors were now working together to build a future. They were not defeated by the war. They had been strengthened by it. They had taken the worst the universe could throw at them, and they had come out the other side unbroken, united, and stronger than ever. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Zyra realized that humanity's true strength wasn't in their ability to fight or destroy. It was in their ability to endure. Humans had been through hell and back, yet they still had hope. They still had the will to keep going, to rise from the ashes, to rebuild, and to protect their own. In that, Zyra saw something far more powerful than any weapon or technology: their ability to love, to sacrifice, and to never give up. The humans didn't just survive, they endured. And that endurance, that unwavering determination to protect and rebuild, was what made them unstoppable. Zyra felt a deep sense of respect for them now, a respect she had never thought possible before. She had learned that humanity's true power wasn't in their bloodthirst or violence. It was in their resilience. No matter how many times they fell, they would always rise again, and that made them stronger than anything the galaxy had ever known. Zyra took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything she had learned settle into her heart. She knew that the future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity would face whatever came their way with the same strength, the same courage, and the same loyalty that had brought them through this war. They would endure, and that endurance would see them through to a brighter tomorrow. As Zyra turned away from the horizon, she couldn't help but smile. The battle was over, but the lesson she had learned would stay with her forever. Humanity wasn't just a species to fear. They were a species to admire, to respect, and to learn from. And in the end, it was their resilience, their ability to endure, that made them truly unstoppable. Humanity doesn't just survive. They endure, and that is what makes them unstoppable. Zyra whispered to herself, her heart swelling with pride for the human race. She was no longer an outsider looking in. She was part of something greater now, something she had come to believe in with all her heart. The battle was over, but humanity's story was just beginning, and Zyra was ready to witness it unfold.